When you talk about Winnie Mandela, what is your immediate reaction, really, when you hear that name?
The first thing that comes to mind is freedom fighter. A lot of people want us to remember her that, and I think a lot of us were very young when the apartheid struggle was happening in South Africa, and we listened to radio. So that's really what we remember, freedom fighter. But I'd also want people to also know that she was a family member. She was a mother, and in such a trying times when her husband was imprisoned, she basically had 2 children to care for. And just, you can imagine, in such a difficult, trying times, for her to be able to raise children by herself in absence of her husband, and also be able to deal with the emotions of having your husband in prison. So for me, it's a strong fighter and also a very strong mother.
What about you, Mohammed? In fact, in your particular case, when you heard about her death Monday, what was your immediate reaction?
Thanks for inviting me back, Shaka. It's always good to see you. I think my initial reaction was Winnie embodies the spirit of a strong African woman. She was as fierce and as she was defiant. And the apartheid state tried to break her spirit by taking away her husband at a young age, and also, of course, taking her and putting her in jail. And they did everything they could to stop her, including feeding all kinds of rumors and things into the press, and even sending messages to Mandela himself to sort of ruin their relationship. So at that time, you know, when she was in the struggle, a lot of the African freedom the leaders who came to power after independence happened to be mostly men, and she stands out as this strong African woman who was raising children, fighting for her husband's release, and was also fighting to free her country from the scourge of apartheid. So it was really, she had a truly remarkable life as a freedom fighter, and I was sad to hear that she had departed.
Would you agree with some who have suggested that she taught all of us that you didn't in fact have to have an AK-47, you didn't have to have a gun, and that in fact you didn't need to be a man?
Absolutely.
To struggle for freedom?
Absolutely. Again, you know, you look at the timing and you look at the forces that she was up against. And in the society at that time, you know, things are much more progressive in the continent and also around the world in terms of women's rights and women's place in society. And at that time, for her to stick her neck out and risk all of that, not just for herself, but for her children, and fight for the cause and stay with it until the last days of her life is truly remarkable.
Mohammed, how do you respond to those who seem to be focused or concentrating on the downside, the negative part of Winnie Mandela, especially her role of, you know, being involved in situations that involved quote-unquote necklacing, for example?
Well, I think you have to really understand her entire life and the struggle and the atmosphere under which she lived at that time, to be able to appreciate the sort of pressure that that she was under as a leader of a movement, a popular movement, if you will, for their country, and also popular movement elsewhere at that time, to be able to make sense of the options that were there in terms of choices to make. And there are very few that were popular, you know, at the time in the minds of people that were not probably feeling exactly what she was struggling with. So I think people have to pay more attention to the positive side of the end, sort of justifying the means of what the struggle was about, and ultimately the Great Award ended up embracing what came out of all of that.